Alright, so this weekend's a pretty big weekend, UFC 308. I decided I wanted to rank every single current champion we have in terms of a scale of 1 to 10. I'm doing this purely for fun. I'm going to rank them as an overall fighter. Almost has nothing to do with personality, and it's pretty much all based on skill, and everything to do with how the fighter currently is, an actual overall ranking out of 10, fairly objective. Okay, I'm gonna have very small bias here. Alright, so starting with the flyweight division, we have Alexander Pantoja. I'm gonna give him, out of 10, his grappling is really good, very dominant grappling. His striking is a little suspect at times, but it's not bad. It's very passable, especially for lightweight. Another important distinction, we're talking out of 10 in terms of their division. A top 10, or sorry, like a 9 out of 10 in flyweight is going to be completely different than like a 9 out of 10 in light heavyweight. Obviously, heavyweight, it matters a little bit more on the power side, so you can knock out opponents, big boys. And then as far as flyweights go, grappling is a little bit higher rated. With that being said, getting back into it, Pantoja, I think he's a solid 8 out of 10. Now, his grappling does carry him a lot here because it is very dominant and it's very Nurmagomedov of him, if you will, to basically hold you down and keep you there. And if he doesn't keep you there, he's almost always riding your back, which is almost equally as bad, because if he's on the back, then you're carrying his weight, and if you're walking around carrying his weight, you're in for a long night, alright? I don't know, he's flyweight, so it's not really a big deal if you think about it, but still kind of, you know, you don't really want to be carrying extra luggage for an extra 25 minutes. So far, I think he's definitely shown himself to be a 8 out of 10 fighter. He does struggle a lot with some of these new up-and-comers, we'll say, like a Steve Urseg, but typically once he's fought someone, he kind of has their number, I think, is what we're noticing. You know, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, you know, he's pretty much cleared out the entirety of the division. And it's purely based on his grappling. In almost every single fight, his grappling, he just takes people down, he holds them there, he gets submissions off, he gets ground and pound. He's pretty good as long as the fight gets off the feet. Now, on the feet is where we take the 2 away from the 10. Now, on the feet, he's just got nothing special, like nothing crazy. He doesn't have spinning dynamic things. He doesn't have great, crazy kicks, you know. He kind of just has a passable striking stance so that he can get you to the ground. And in flyweight, it really does, you do have to be an all-arounder, and because his striking is at the bare minimum passable, you know, like a striking match between Brandon Royval, I think Brandon Royval wins, but because it's mixed martial arts, obviously you count for takedowns. So I think Pantoja is going to be a champion for a while. Do think he's an 8 out of 10 fighter. Not really too much negative to say. He's even got a pretty good chin. He is pretty hittable, and that attributes to that 8 out of 10. But I rate Pantoja very highly. I'll give him a solid 8 out of 10. If we're talking about flyweight goats here, he's still not even close. You know, you have Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson to get compared to. So you got a long road, but I do think he's a solid 8 out of 10. Now, moving on. We got Merab Divashvili. So, this is where the ranking's gonna get controversial. Alright, so, Merab, I'm gonna give him a... Oof. This is tough. This is tough, guys. Ooh, I'm gonna give him a 6 out of 10. Now, you might be like, well, he just beat O'Malley. O'Malley's a fantastic fighter, blah, 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 right? And he's beat a bunch of GOATs. He's beat Jose Aldo, you know, he beat, who else did he beat? You know? Marlon Moraes, I get it, you know. I know Merab fans aren't gonna be too happy. But he's like a 6 out of 10, and that's me being very generous. And you want to know why? His cardio is the only thing that's good. Straight up. His grappling is terrible. Shooting 50 takedowns doesn't mean you have good grappling. It means you have very shitty grappling because you can't get the takedowns. You know what I mean? Like, if you had one takedown and 4 minutes and 55 seconds of control time, that is a showcase of great grappling, aka Pantoja. But if you shoot 50 takedowns in a 3-round fight, I'm sorry. I think it was a 5-round fight against Peter Yan. I'm pretty sure it was a 5-round fight. He's also can't finish you anywhere. He can't finish you on the feet. He can't finish you on the ground. Because he's allergic to it for some reason. And knees to the thigh is kind of his strength. Outside of that, he's all cardio, no technique. His striking is terrible. He's outside of the pocket 90% of the time, just throwing at air, fighting the demons in his brain, fighting the voices, trying to tell him to, no, brother, stop, brother, you have to fight, brother, and he just keeps on throwing fists at himself. A little bit of psychosis happening with Merab in the middle of a panic attack when he's got Sean O'Malley in front of him. So, outside of his just non-stop cardio, which is clearly from PEDs, just saying, he's got nothing else. It's just cardio. He can go 5 rounds, no problem, and he's got one of the best cardios to ever exist. But he's got no heat in the hands. He never hurt Sean O'Malley. You could argue maybe, he snapped his head back, but that's not hurting. I consider it to be like a wobbling, or a knockdown. You won't see any of those on Merab Dvalishvili's record, which is a big, big point deduction there, and I'm being very generous giving this guy 6 out of 10 for all-around mixed martial arts fighting, alright? He's got nothing other than cardio, it's all sloppy takedowns, it's all terrible striking, and it's all hugging you against the cage, which in MMA, that's kind of how you win now, is just by hugging people against the cage, but that's pretty easy to do when you're on performance-enhancing drugs, just saying. Yeah, overall 6 out of 10, don't rate him that high at all. Only thing good he has is cardio. He lost to Sean O'Malley in that championship match. And I think it's a good showcase that damage and, actual quality striking doesn't really matter to the judges anymore. They just care that you're fighting your own mental demons in the middle of the cage. Anyways, moving on, we have Ilia Topuria. Now, in terms of an all-around fighter, I can't give this guy lower than a 9 out of 10. Now, I know I'm picking Max Holloway against him coming up this weekend, and this might be a change, if Max Holloway wins. But assuming Ilia Topuria is still champion, I give this guy solid 9 out of 10. Hold up. Woo! Had to exercise some demons right there. Anyways, Ilia Topuria, you can't give him lower than a 9 out of 10. Now, his striking, his hands, he's got some of the strongest hands in the division, including Josh Emmett, alright? And that's important to mention there. Josh Emmett has a right hand from fucking hell, But Ilia Topuria's hands make Josh Emmett look like fucking little baby punch. He makes Josh Emmett look like Merab, alright? And then, in terms of cardio, we've seen him go 5 rounds dominantly, whooping someone's ass for 5 rounds straight. I think his cardio isn't really too suspect, however, we'll see in the Max Holloway fight, alright? Obviously, knocked out Volkanovski, one of the greatest to ever do it, after Volk came off a loss. But outside of that, he has finished a lot of his opponents via knockout. And on top of that, he's even a savage on the ground. A lot of people don't know because Ilia Topuria keeps it on the feet a lot of the time, but his grappling is actually very, very high level. So he's able to submit you pretty consistently, and he's able to knock you out pretty consistently. Of course, his boxing stance is phenomenal. Absolutely one of the best boxing stances you can ever have. If you haven't seen any of the footage, I'm sure it's going around now because of the 308 stuff going on. But Ilia Topuria by far is one of the best stances, like, for a boxing MMA style. He's able to guard pretty well against jabs to the stomach while also guarding his face within milliseconds, pretty much. Fast hands, very explosive, very dangerous, everywhere for 25 minutes. He's a hard fight for anyone in the division, including Max Holloway. So I think we'll see a very entertaining fight this weekend, but I can't give Ilia any lower than a 9 out of 10. The reason why he's not a 10 out of 10 is only because he hasn't been tested in terms of his same level. And what I mean by that, while Volkanovski is great, He came off a KO loss 3 months after getting knocked out. Off a short notice fight. Are we going to pretend like Volk also isn't aging like a 37-year-old? You know what I mean? It sucks. It really does. It really does suck. But Ilya has yet to genuinely fight steep competition. Who was it that he got the title shot off of? Josh Emmett. Is Josh Emmett top 5 material? Come on, be honest. Now, I know featherweight's, you know, now it's getting interesting, but for a while it's been like, the same people. But now we're getting like the Diego Lopez's, now we're getting Movsar Evloevs, you know. We haven't seen Ilia Topuria fight a boring style or a dangerous style for who he is, other than the time he got dropped at lightweight, but he hasn't done that in a long time. So I'll give Ilia Topuria 9 out of 10 with some needs improvement. He could showcase he's a perfect 10 out of 10 with this Max Holloway fight. We'll see how he deals with them. But regardless, I do think he's a 9 out of 10. Probably one of the strongest champions we've had in featherweight for a while. We'll see what happens. You know, we'll see. Alright, so hopeful for my boy Max. Anyways, moving on, we have lightweight. Islam Makhachev. Now, this might be a hot take. I think he's a 7 out of 10 fighter. I do. You know, grappling is great. Strength is great. Something over there in the water. Just saying. But his striking is better than Khabib's, you know. And it's almost not even fucking close. But the issue is Khabib's not taking a 2-2 or a 2, what would it be? Yeah, 2-2 going into the 5th with Dustin Poirier needing a finish. You know what I mean? Khabib's not doing that. You know what I mean? Charles Oliveira isn't doing that. Taking him to the 5th, it's 2-2, very close. You know what I mean? A lot of the former champions have fought a lot of the people in this top 5 category. But, like, guys, I mean, he's making it close with a lot of people. I mean, he went 5 rounds with Volk. Ilya did it in 2. I know it was, like, almost a year apart, but, like, come on. You know what I mean? I can't give him anywhere near Ilya, because Ilya has he did better against an opponent, that Islam fought, pretty much. But Islam had to get the finish in 6 rounds. Ilya got the finish in 2, you know? I know there's like, well, he's been knocked out, blah, blah. I know. Listen, I know. But that's just one of the examples. So at bare minimum, you give him a 9 out of 10. I'm docking 2 points because he's making it competitive with a lot of people, you know? Does he beat someone like Justin Gaethje? Probably. Is it guaranteed? Do you know what I mean? Where if I look at someone like Ilya, is he beating an Arnold Allen? Yeah. It's sad, I know. Arnold Allen, one of my favorite, probably top 15 fighters right now. He just doesn't make it, unfortunately. Does he beat a Brian Ortega? I mean, maybe. Brian Ortega gets the grappling going, maybe. You know, maybe. You know, does he beat a Movsar Evloev? You know, those are the things like... Or, sorry, my bad. Does he beat Brian Ortega? For sure. Does he beat Movsar Evloev? In my opinion, for sure. Sorry, I was thinking of the wrong thing there. Does he beat a Yair Rodriguez? Come on, guys. Like, for sure. You know? Diego Lopez is really the only question mark. But we got, you know, does Islam beat Justin Gaethje? I don't know, man. I'd have to see it. Does he beat Oliveira? Okay, maybe. Does he beat Arman Sarukian? You know what I mean? Like, these are the questions you're asking every time you hear a matchup. Where if you heard a matchup with Ilya, it's like, oh, well, Ilya's winning that. It's just a matter of which round. You know? Except for Max Holloway. Just saying. Or Diego Lopez. Anyways, just saying. But, you know, Islam gets close fights, man. You know? And there was a time where Beneil Dariush was threatening, you know, this is the guy who's going to beat Islam Makhachev. Next champion. You know what I mean? That was the narrative for a while. There's a lot of styles we see in lightweight that are like, well, this guy might be able to beat Islam, you know? Where you don't get that with Ilya. Ilya's got that aura. Islam's kind of lost that aura. He's only getting older. And just to be honest, his striking, well, better than Khabib's by far. It's still not great. If he took a fight, yes or no, if he took a fight with anyone in the top 10, other than maybe Gamrot in striking, he loses. He's not knocking out Fiziev. He's not, okay, maybe he's knocking out Beneil. I don't know, maybe he doesn't, you know? We've sensing a little bit of chinning from Islam recently, and he's been chinned before. You know, that's another important thing. He does have a loss on his record here. Does he beat Chandler in a striking match? You know, like, we don't know these things. Hooker, I would pick Hooker for sure. Hollow, like, come on. In a just striking match? I don't know. His grappling is good, but we're seeing guys do really well against his grappling. Volkanovski, a guy who's much, much smaller than Islam, he did really well in the first fight against the grappling, you know? Dustin Poirier also did very well against Islam's grappling until he got submitted, obviously, but Dustin always gets submitted, you know? He doesn't always do well against other grapplers, though. That's the main takeaway, you know? So I can't give Islam that high. I'm giving him a 7 out of 10, you know? Definitely above Merab, but he's not Ilya, you know? He's not this flawless fighter who's untouchable. He's kind of just like, alright, who's going to be the guy to dethrone Islam is what we're asking. Where Ilya is like, damn, how long is Ilya's reign going to be? You know, that's the question I often ask. Moving on, Bilal Muhammad. I'm glad his name is there. I would have forgotten it, unfortunately. But, Bilal Muhammad, here we go. Here we go, baby. Here we go. I think he's the worst champion, and I think he's a 4 out of 10 champion. I think he's one of the worst welterweight champions we've ever had, including Leon. Alright? And I know he beat Leon, but that doesn't necessarily mean fucking anything, you know? In terms of what we're talking about, like the best welterweight champion. You know, I think Leon's a better striker by far. I think he's a better anti-grappler. He just doesn't have, I don't think he's the better grappler, but I think it's close. Bilal Muhammad is kind of just shit, you know? And he just gets it done every time. A little bit of that Merab Dvalishvili sort of gas tank, where he does have a lot of gas in his tank, but in almost every fight, he somehow makes it close when he shouldn't. Against a one-armed Gilbert Burns, you know what I mean? There's an argument to be made Gilbert Burns won that fight, you know? I'm just saying, like, these things are like, you know what I mean? That's a one-armed Gilbert Burns, and he made it close, you know? He's been knocked out by Jeff Neal. His record is pretty shit for a champion. Just real quick, you know, 24-3. Okay, it's not that shit. I thought it was like 24-7, to be fair. But he's been finished before. His striking beat Leon when Leon was 95% asleep in a slumber. You know, you practically saw a pillow in his hands. You know, and whenever Leon's back got taken, you could just see him falling asleep. But Bilal's also not a threat. Like, there's more method to my madness here, you know? But anyways, yeah, Bilal Muhammad, he just doesn't have anything really good about him. Is his striking that good? Who is he finished? Sean Brady? Wow. You know? Is his grappling that good? He can hold people down, but at least Pantoja can finish people. You know what I mean? Outside of that, like, his cardio is above average, I guess. Leon's never been known to have the greatest cardio. And he's a decision fighter. You know what I mean? Like, there's just nothing, like, what is good about Bilal? Oh, his jab's really good. You know who else has a great jab? Every single champion to exist in the UFC. You want to know why? Because a jab is a very basic thing to understand, you know? And maybe that's not true for all of them, but you get my point. Like, his jab, are we really, you know, going down to that? His grappling, you know, Leon Edwards had his back. You know what I mean? And Leon Edwards, if he decided to throw 3 more elbows there at the end of the fight, he would have won via TKO. You know, if I was a betting man, which I don't gamble, I'm never touching a money line with Bilal Muhammad, ever. You know? Especially with the Shavkat fight coming up. A decision fighter against a finisher. You know what I mean? But this is just my personal ranking. 4 out of 10. He's got nothing special, and he's a champion. And he beat Leon when it was 6 a.m. UK time. Like, there's not really much else to say, you know? Yeah, Bilal's the champion, I guess. Yeah. Moving on, we have middleweight, Dricus du Plessis. Now, this might be another hot take. I think he's a 8.5 out of 10 fighter. Now, he's definitely nowhere near the aura of Ilya, and that's why that 0.5 gets taken away. But he's good. He's very good. He doesn't look good. He does not look good. He looks like shit in every fight. But he is good. Whether it's his heavy hands, unorthodoxly wobbling you, he then shoots a takedown, and then he gets your back, and he's the first person to submit Israel Adesanya. Hey, I predicted DDP, baby. Anyways, yeah, DDP set the timeline straight. Whooped Israel Adesanya's ass. Wasn't even close. He was even up on the scorecards if you want to argue, well, is he was tank? No, Dricus du Plessis was winning that fight. So, back to the gulag, little bro. Anyways, and then he had one of the closest fights of all time against Sean Strickland, and almost a purely striking fight, which I was surprised with, because I would have thought Dricus du Plessis would have implemented a grappling-heavy plan. While he did grapple at some points, it was mostly hugging to the fence, which is a good showcase of an overall thing, I guess. Like, he can just hold you to the fence if he wants to, and knee you to the thigh if he wants to win on the scorecards, but he's a Giga Chad, and he will literally just run your ass down. You know, basically like a very sloppy Robert Whittaker, but one who's got heavier hands and is more dangerous on the ground than anyone in the division. So, while I do recognize he's been finished before, I think both ways. I think he got submitted and he's been knocked out. And he's lost by decision. So he's lost in every single... No, wait, it's only 2 losses, correct? It is 2 losses. I think it was a submission and... He lost via... Okay, it's not going to show, right? Because this is the UFC. But I believe he lost via submission and KO very early on into his career. However, there's no denying that Dricus du Plessis is a great middleweight champion. He doesn't look it, and I understand that completely. But he is technical in terms of he mixes up the striking, so he's pretty good there. And then, like, he will throw head kicks at, like, point-blank range. He landed a few flush ones on Sean Strickland's fight. So it's just like he landed a few close head kicks, like clean head kicks on Sean Strickland, you know, in their fight. So with that being said, I gotta give Dricus du Plessis 8.5 out of 10. I think he's solid, you know. I think he's really skillful. He just doesn't look like it. He just looks like shit, you know. And that's just the debuff there, I guess. Only thing he could do better is obviously not look like he's Michel Pereira after round 1, but at least he actually fights through exhaustion. Just saying. But yeah, so 8.5 out of 10 for Dricus du Plessis, very close to Ilya tier, but he's just shy from it in my opinion. Moving on, we got Alex Poatan Pereira. Drama. I gotta give Alex Pereira. I gotta give him 8.5, you know? There's an argument to be made, 10 out of 10. And while I do actually rate Alex Pereira's grappling nowadays a little higher, because he literally looked like he was snapping Jan Blachowicz' neck. If you haven't seen it, go back, watch that fight. At Salt Lake City, at altitude, he was literally lifting Jan Blachowicz up from his neck. Just saying. Now, he does look confused sometimes on the ground still, which is a little concerning, or when he's getting, like, takedown shot on him. However, striking is the best in the entire UFC. It's not even fucking close. He will put your lights out. No questions asked. Very easy. He's just the best at it, you know? In terms of striking, you can't max out his skill any more than it already is. His grappling could use some work, but no one's really testing it, so that kind of adds into that 8 out of 10. The only reason why I'm not giving him 9 out of 10 or higher, he has been knocked out, and that does prove, and this is recently, this is within 2 to 3 years, he's been knocked out. And I know that was a weight cutting and, you know, 185 instead of light heavyweight, but you have to account for that in these sort of rankings here. And Alex Pereira, I gotta give him an 8.5. Best striking in the UFC, not even close. And his grappling might be sus, but he's never really been tested because no one can really get to the test, you know? It's like you're on your way to go do your math test, and before you even arrive at school, you're getting left hooked by Pereira. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Alex Pereira, definitely one of the better champions, in my opinion. And the only reason why I'm really docking points is because of his recent losses, and he's still looking a little chinny. Now, I know he hasn't been knocked out in his previous 4 fights because they were all this year like a true Giga Chad, but he doesn't look like he's taking damage well when he's caught, you know? Khalil didn't really touch him, other than maybe that check, I think, right hook, but that was, you know, Pereira was kind of off balance. When he gets hit by, like, Yuri, it kind of looks like his head is snapping back, and it's like, whoa, you know? Like, you start to get worried for Pereira, especially in the first fight, you know? So, a little worried about his chin there. Other than that, the only thing to really dock is his loss to Israel, the bum, Adesanya, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, he's almost perfect. Everything you want from a champion. So, I'm giving him a nice 8.5 out of 10. Rate him the same as Rikus. And I think that's very fitting, because if I saw these two fight, either at light heavyweight or a middleweight, I'd be torn on which one to choose, just saying. Moving on, we do have Tom Aspinall. You know what? Fuck Jones. Jones hasn't fought in like 3 years. I don't care. Even though I know he fought recently. I don't give a fuck, alright? Fuck Jones. Tom Aspinall, the perfect 10 out of 10 fighter. There's nothing bad about him at all. I'm gonna be honest. I was gonna talk about what's his name, John Jones, but I'm talking about Tom Aspinall now. Unplanned adventures. Here we go. His losses in the UFC are only by injury, and outside of that, he's finished everyone within a minute to 2. His striking, impeccable. Power, impeccable. There's no higher weight division, so he doesn't have to worry about going up a division, you know, and worrying about how people slug it out there, you know. He's taken shots before in fights, like from Sergey, and he's just good, you know. There's not really much else to say. Sorry, he's just the GOAT, you know, in terms of overall well-rounded skill. He showcased great grappling. He definitely has great grappling. He just, like a Pereira effect, doesn't need to do it. So at bare minimum, I have to rank him at least at Pereira, 8.5. And then we look at his wins. It's all to elite competition. And he's defending an interim champion belt like a true Giga Chad. Something that is rarely done ever. And then you have to ask yourself, does he beat people in this division? Well, the only one he hasn't fought is Ciryl Gane. I'm picking Tom Aspinall 10 out of 10 times to beat Ciryl Gane. He beat Volkov, he beat Pavlovich, he beat Blades, he hasn't fought Jolton Almeida, but Jolton Almeida has been proven to have a shit chin and only relies on grappling. He beat Stipe. If they fought, my whole bank account would be on Tom Aspinall. I don't think he's fought Rosenstruik, but let's be honest. He beat Tybura. Like, he clears the division. It's not even close. And because Tom Aspinall is considered the GOAT by a lot of people who are very out of MMA and they don't actually pay attention to what's going on, and they haven't actually watched any Jones fights, or note the fact that he's a dirty rat cheater who has performance-enhancing drugs in his system, and because they've been there, it means he's always constantly benefiting from it. You know, just people who don't understand how performance-enhancing drugs work. It's great. I'd even pick Tom Aspinall to beat the roid cheat John Jones, you know, and I don't even have to think about that fight too much. Easy first round knockout. Tom Aspinall special, pretty much. So I think Tom Aspinall is like by far deserving of a perfect. Actually, I'll dock him 9.5 out of 10 because he doesn't have an O next to his wins, and that's it. That's the only reason why. So I think Tom Aspinall is probably the best champion in the UFC right now. I'm putting him above Ilya. The only reason being, pretty much, is because Tom Aspinall has looked so dominant against elite level competition in his division, and because we're talking about heavyweight, you know, you're not seeing an Ilya Topuria go to heavyweight. You know, you're seeing a Derek Lewis go into heavyweight. You're seeing a Kennedy Nzechukwu go to heavyweight. You know, you're not seeing fast, explosive, all-around guys go to heavyweight. You're seeing a bunch of fat, old dum-dums who just slug it out until someone gets knocked out. You know, would Tom Aspinall beat a Francis Ngannou? I pick him in that matchup. You know what I mean? Like, it's just things like these. That's my personal ranking of all the divisions. If you're wondering why I'm not ranking the women's division, it's because I don't really care. And I only care about the men's division because I like watching Warriors fight. And yeah, that's pretty much why I'm doing that. So, with all that being said, just remember, everything in this video is opinion, subjective. You can disagree. Feel free to disagree and maybe post a comment on whatever fighter you believe is a, you know, perfect champion. Even if it's Merab, I won't laugh at you in the comments, you know. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. So if you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you for watching. And as always, I hope you have a good day.